Hey everybody, it's Bear. It's Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, and it's been a hot minute since I've done a video, mostly because I just haven't had a lot of topics, I haven't had a lot of requests, and I haven't had anything come up that I wanted to do a video on. Today, however, marks 4 years since I graduated Air Force basic training, and last year on my anniversary around this time, I did some video updates. I don't want to do that this year, but what I figured I would touch base on is like my number two top request as far as videos, and that's how did you come out to your basic training flight? Um, I, honestly, like the number one request is talking about like how to get through BMT with breasts and can you stay on your hormones and stuff like that. And the number two request has got to easily be tell us about how you came out to your basic training flight. So to kind of tell the whole story, I don't know how it's happening now, and I don't know how it happened for other people, but personally, um, the Air Force, my recruiter had communicated to basic training that there was a trans trainee coming. And I think that probably gets communicated now. I just don't know exactly how, because we have different medical needs. We're going to stay on our hormones and everything. And so that they can watch your back. And that's kind of like what I get into. So the night I got to reception, you go into like an auditorium and you're separated into your flights and stuff like that, and you do a lot of waiting, and you get your first box nasty, which is a box lunch that any airman knows like what I'm talking about. It's self-explanatory. Mine was frozen, which was really fun, so I hadn't eaten all day. Um, Regardless, so my chain of command actually called me into a separate room, and it was the only time at Air Force basic training that I was not with another trainee, and that's because it was a matter of discretion. At all other times you're gonna be with somebody else because it's a matter of like safety and stuff. But this had to do especially with the fact that I was trans, and they wanted to really talk to me about like how it was gonna work and stuff like that. So it was my first sergeant, my squadron commander, and my flight commander. They were all in a room, and the first sergeant just said, he introduced everybody. He said, "We're going to be your chain of command, and we want you to know that while we have your back as far as being transgender and going through basic training post transition, being kind of different from your flight mates, and this is a new process that we're going through. We've got your back, but it's going to be business as usual at basic training." And I've talked about that a little bit before. It was business as usual. Like I was not given any kind of special treatment at all. I also wasn't hazed or anything like that. It's just the new military. They don't really like call you out and have you doing all that anymore, for better or worse, which I'm not going to get into. So so yeah, that's basically what they told me. The other thing they told me though was that I had two options as far as coming out or not coming out. They're like, either you can tell your flight right away, like tonight when you get up into the dorm, um, or you can wait or not come out at all. But if there's any gossip at all, or there's any drama at all around the topic of you being transgender, it's no longer an option. You have to tell your flight mates. Gossip in the military is really, really bad. It's really serious. You have to be able to trust the people that you work with, and they want to kind of squash gossip because it breeds dis-ease and dissatisfaction with your coworkers. It makes you second guess yourself. It's just not good. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and I'm not saying drama doesn't happen, because it does. We're humans, and it's a workplace. You're not always going to like your coworkers. But especially in basic training, it's treated really, really seriously because you're in a closed environment and you have nowhere to go to vent, and it can just be a really bad negative thing. So that's what they said. They were like, if there is any gossip or drama relating to your trans status, you have to come out to your flight and you have to deal with it through your chain of command. So, your chain in basic training basically is your element leaders, your dorm chief, and then your MTIs, and then they run it up through your squadron and everything like that. So that's basically what happened. I personally, and I told them right then, because they wanted an answer that so that they could tell my MTIs, um, what was going to happen. I told them no, I would rather get established with my flight and have them learn my work ethic and my personality and stuff like that, and not base their views of me on the fact that I was trans, and not kind of be watching everything I did, or like really looking for anything in the shower, because the Air Force still uses, open bay showers, and there's 50 people on a flight, there's at least 30 people in the shower at any one time. So I didn't want them looking for anything. And I told them, I was like, that's what I'd rather do. I'd rather not tell anybody right away, blah blah blah. And that was respected. It was handled totally respectfully. I was sent back to, the auditorium. And ultimately what happened was that there was gossip and there was a little bit of drama. For the most part, my experience with BMT was like a normal person's experience, and I don't want to get into that right now in this video, but I've talked about that in previous videos. If you go back right after I graduated, I talk about like my actual experience when it was still fresh in my head, and I did 3 videos. So, again, like I said before, we're human beings. You're not always going to get along with your coworkers. Your job in basic training is to learn to be in the Air Force and learn to work with other people, and it's not always going to go smoothly. There were definitely people I butted heads with. I am a, you know, forceful, hard-headed person. I like certain things done a certain way, and it's something that I'm constantly working on. I'm constantly trying to improve, softening my tone and stuff. So whatever, I butted heads with people. Yeah, no big deal. Like everybody butted heads in basic training. You're stuck with 50 other dudes for 8 weeks. So but there was one particular person that had like special drama with me, and who multiple times actually just fully melted down and yelled at me in front of other people, and that's what ultimately happened. Was he kind of had a moment, an episode, and was yelling at me, and it turned out that he had noticed that I was different and didn't like having someone around that was different, and um, I found out in that moment that he had been talking to other people about how he didn't think I should be there and how he felt weird about it. So I up channeled it in the means that I was told to. I routed it up that, hey, there's been gossip, somebody doesn't like it, and I was told to say something. So within so I was asked for details and stuff like that, and within 20, maybe 30 minutes, our squadron commander was in our dormitory, and I was told, you're gonna have to that conversation with your flight mates, and he's here to support you, and to say some things officially. And so I just told them. It wasn't like a really dramatic thing. I'm used to talking in front of people. I've done public speaking before, so I just kind of said, "Hey, you know, um, it's just time to tell you guys that I'm transgender, and this is what that means. That I was assigned female at birth, and that later on in life I started taking testosterone and altered my body to live and function as male, and I've been allowed to join the military as male, and that I just was here to do what everybody else was doing, and serve the country." I also talked a little bit about what hormones does to you, and that it's not like a steroid. It wasn't giving me any sort of like performance in enhancing abilities or anything like that, as far as like standards, because I didn't want them to think that PT standards were going to be affected, like I was going to outscore anybody on a PT test or anything like that. So I talked a little bit about that. I think maybe some people asked a couple of questions, but I don't really remember. Um, and that was really it. I just literally explained what it was. Um, I did explain that there had been a ban and that the ban was lifted, and that it was kind of like it was a new thing for the military. And then the commander, who was a lieutenant colonel, he talked for a couple minutes just about um, integrity. It's one of our core values is integrity, and one of the subsets of integrity is courage, and being able to tell people something that's sensitive about yourself is courage, and that's integrity. And that was cool to hear him kind of say that, and not really call out like the drama or anything like that. That was handled really discreetly. It wasn't brought up in front of the group. Nobody's like dirty laundry was aired out or anything like that. And he was really supportive. He didn't talk a lot that night at the reception cell, but when he talked in front of the group, he was like, we are Americans, and you guys are soon going to be American airmen, and that is a family, and family takes care of family. This is not just your teammate, this is your brother, and it is your job to have his back ultimately. And that, yeah, that felt really cool to have him kind of point out that fact was really humbling. And then he also talked about discretion, and how it can be dangerous to out somebody. And so he basically just said, if this turns into gossip outside the flight, there will be, punitive action taken. You're not going to talk about anybody else's status as transgender or anything else. And he talked about like other things that are personal details. And again, he pointed out we are a family, and family takes care of family. Family doesn't drag somebody else's name through the mud, and especially if you don't like them, don't do that. So that was really it. I'm looking through my notes really quick to see if I missed anything, and I don't think I did. Um, I haven't really wanted to talk about it yet, just because it wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't that huge of a thing. But I get a lot of people asking about it, and so I figured that it's worth sharing, and it is a different story than a lot of people in BMT have. Not everybody is different. A lot of people kind of fly under the radar and just kind of keep their head down, and they don't get in trouble, and they don't stand out, and they are totally cool with that. Other people want to stand out and be like element leaders and top like PT performers and stuff like that. So you just kind of have two kinds of groups of people. I really didn't want any extra attention. I was excited and happy to be there. I worked really hard to get to the point where I was in basic training and moving forward with a totally different career. Up until the Air Force, I worked in food service and stuff, and it was always just like, man, I want to do something bigger. Um, so that was my goal. I just wanted to kind of like, you know, I wanted to survive. I wanted to get through it. I wanted to prove that trans people can, endure the stresses of being in the military, and basic training is a lot of stress. You know, I've talked about it before. I don't think I handled all that stress that well because I get aggravated. I have a short temper, and so I got snippy with people in basic training, and I wish I could go back and undo that. But in the end, I got through it. I met the same standards that everybody else did, and here I am 4 years later, and it's the same story, right? Like I'm trying to do my job to the best of my ability. I struggle with some parts of my job. I excel at other parts of my job. I get along with some coworkers. I don't get along with some coworkers. I just described everybody in the Air Force. Like, we're all that same exact thing, whether you're male, female, gay, straight, bi, and whatever your race is. That's exactly what we're all going through, and